Howdy everyone. Alrighty, so as you can see, I've moved back to working on this front top fuselage area. Of course, I had been fooling around with my newly acquired engine a little bit. So now that I'm back, I'm moving back onto this front fuselage area. So far, what I have done, I've got the skeleton, if you will, of the top in place. Everything is just clecoed. Nothing has been final drilled. Nothing has been fluted or anything of that nature. I'm just doing the initial fit. So I've got the framework in place, and I just put on the top skin. You'll note that I've used every single hole available to me on the skin. I didn't skip any holes with the clecos. There's a really good reason for that, and you'll find this out when you get to this point. This skin is very tight. It's quite a nuisance to fool with to get into place. What I ended up doing, initially I had tried the usual method where you kind of start in the middle and you work your way out toward the ends. That was not working. So I started at one end. I basically stood the skin upright in this fashion, and I put this row of clecos in, and then I just kind of laid it down, and as I laid it down, I went one at a time, put these clecos in, then I put these across, then I went through the center, put these across, and then around to the other side. That worked out better because when you start at one end and you work it across, for lack of a better explanation, you kind of work out the kinks, you kind of work out the wrinkles, you kind of stretch it on over, if you will. So by the time you get to this side, you've got all of these clecos in place, which is helping with alignment, and it's helping to move everything this way. This is still not fun. There's no party here putting this together because this is a pretty tight bend. And then this last row across here, you really got to bring it down and fold it so that it can lay against the side skin. Again, not the funnest thing on the planet to do, but I did find working from one end and coming across, that worked the best. I didn't have any fixtures. I didn't have to deal with any straps or anything like that. Just a little bit of elbow grease and making sure that the clecos are well seated. You can see I've got a couple here. They're either bent or they're not seated completely, but that's okay. What I like to do is I'll go around and I'll wiggle these a little bit, and quite often you'll hear them pop and click as they set. A lot of times you'll be over here fooling with a couple and you'll hear one down at that side click into place. So that's what I do. I just keep going around, make sure that all the clecos are set as best as I can get them. And these are, you can see a couple are not, or they're bent, and that's okay. Everything else is in place. If these few are kind of jacked, I don't really care. I'll clean out, there we go. I'll clean out these holes when I do my match drilling, so it's not the end of the world. If all the clecos on the skin were all cattywampus like these, I'd be concerned, but I've only got a few. All the other clecos look good, so I'm positive it's just these few holes are not perfectly aligned, but I'll take care of that when I match drill them. So I had already pre-marked the flange of the firewall. This flange in here has no holes in it all the way around. I had drawn my center line on the top of that flange, and then there's the center piece. There's a support that runs through here underneath. I also put a center line on that flange. So now it's just a matter of finding that line through the holes, moving it into position, lining up the line through the center of the holes, and then match drilling through that, and then all the way around the perimeter of the firewall. So that's what I'm going to do now. Since I've got this all clecoed down, I'm going to go ahead and match drill these holes. And as I go, I'll cleco, and then of course I'll match drill these and cleco. So let me do that, and then at that point it will probably be disassembly and a bunch of, I still have to match drill the frame. Howdy everyone. I just finished up match drilling all the holes that you can see with the clecos in it. So now this skin is done. It's been completely match drilled. A couple of things, a couple of hints that I want to give out before I get too far away from taking this out. The biggest thing is remember to draw your lines on the flange of the firewall, your center line for the flange, so when you can look down through these holes and find that line before you drill. You have to do the same thing on this centerpiece here, mark a reference line and then look for that line down through the holes. Also remember that this is stainless steel. So when you drill stainless steel, what do you want to do? If you remember from my other videos, cutting fluid of some sort, low speed, and a relatively heavy feed. But you have to be careful because if you get too heavy on it, the drill bit is small for one thing, you don't want to snap it. If you're too heavy, when you get through the stainless, it will kind of poke through instead of actually cutting. And a lot of times that will break the drill bit because it will kind of grab the drill bit and pull it. As it twists, it's going to try to pull it. So if you pay real close attention to your drilling, you'll hear and you can sometimes feel on the drill itself when it's about to come through the other side. So again, lubricant, slow feed, a relatively heavy feed, but just before you poke through, you want to ease up a little bit and allow the drill bit to actually cut that last little bit rather than poke. Okay? And I think that's it. You can see I'm in the process of pulling off the clecos, so I'm going to pull this off, and then I'll probably start match drilling all the support structure that's underneath. All right, talk to you soon. Howdy, everyone. As you can see, I've got the skin off after I had obviously match drilled everything. So what I'm working on, what I've just finished up, are these little miscellaneous brackets that you have to make and install to help support the instrument panel. So there's a bracket here, and you can see it gets a nut plate. And then there's another bracket here down the side, and it gets a nut plate. So what I recommend doing, after you get the nut plates, or after you get the angles made and you get the nut plates on, cleco the angles to the instrument panel, and then take a measurement on both sides from the face of this to the edge of the instrument panel right here. You want that distance to be the same on this side and on that side, because without the skin in place, the instrument panel can shift side to side. So you can virtually have no gap on this side, and on that side you'd have a really large gap. So you have to keep that in mind when you're fabricating your angle pieces before you put the nut plates on them, because depending on where the instrument panel is shifted, that's going to kind of dictate where you need to put the hole in your angle piece for the nut plate. So just make sure that the instrument panel is centered left to right before you start drilling your holes for the instrument panel into those angle pieces, especially this one. The other thing that I had done was I took a measurement from this rivet here to the edge of the instrument panel. I just took a reference, which was this rivet, measured to the face of the instrument panel. And I did that on both sides just to make sure that the instrument panel was not, I don't know what you want to call it, at an angle in this orientation, just to make sure that both sides from a reference point were the same. So once I had that centered, then I went ahead and I was able to drill through this bracket through here. On this bracket I can't get to, so I just marked through the holes that are already in the angle. I marked through the holes into this space just with a marker, just as a reference, and I'll drill those holes after I get all this stuff out of the way and I have room to work. So that's it. That's all I wanted to point out. Before you, like I said, before you start permanently drilling holes and fitting these two angles, just make sure your instrument panel is centered across the width and that it's straight going off of a reference point somewhere on the fuselage, just to make sure that it's straight this way, it's not angled. All right, so I've got that done. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do next. I believe I'm going to start working on the mechanism through here, the linkage that runs through here and then out through the instrument panel for the canopy jettison. I think I'm going to do that next, and then I can finally figure out where to put the nut plates on this guy. So we'll see. All right, talk to you later.